Hey, yep, Ryan Pierce here. Pleasure to be here. School of Business and Technology. Um, we are just thrilled to partner with the Career Services Department because we always tend to have good speakers. Thanks to Julie Salter and her efforts. Also happy that Gear Up is here, and some others that are joining us right now. And so I'm going to just pass it back to Julie because I don't really have much to say. I think we want to let our speaker for the day or for the half hour get to it. So, Julie, take it away.
Networking. We have a pretty robust slate of social events for the interns and like fun things we do, like gaming tournaments for them and things like that. So, in addition to providing the salary, we do provide housing, like a living stipend and relocation assistance for anybody who's not in the area, because we do try to promote an in-person program where possible. So that's it. It's open to pretty much everybody from the sophomore level through graduation. We like to do some early education on students earlier than that. As of right now, the earliest we take a student to actually work here is at the sophomore level. That's a pilot or a program we've been piloting this year, is carving out certain amounts of roles for some of those earlier education students. But maybe we'll get to freshmen in the future. But yeah, we have mostly undergrad, I'd say, and like kind of specialized masters, but we have an MBA program, we have PhD program students. So really anybody at any level can apply. And yeah, moving on, this is a kind of very general presentation that we use for all of our tech roles. So I'm just going to skip to the stuff that we wanted to focus on today. But if anybody ever had any questions about like other areas, I'm happy to answer them. But security focused. Probably not surprising, like with this many games and with this much, player data access, like we have a lot of ways that we need to defend our products as well as just our internal security for our company. And so we have internship opportunities at several of these teams. Off the top of my head, we have opportunities in like game security. So that would be protecting the game itself from people that try to like hack it or cheat, it's actually a really cool team. A lot of them like travel internationally, like to go work abroad sometimes with like in areas where there's like a lot of prevalent like communities of cheats. And so they'll like work locally, like it's kind of intense, it's very cool. But they do take interns. And then on kind of a smaller, scale, not as intensive traveling the world, but we have like opportunities in information security risk analysis. So maybe somebody that doesn't want to code all day and do a lot of programming work, but wants to be more on that kind of combining the business side with technology. And so reviewing processes, making sure we're compliant, finding any gaps where we may want to make efforts to, try to fix any threat or risk areas. Player data is a huge focus area for us. There's a lot of rules and regulations around how to be compliant for millions and millions of people are giving us their personal information to be able to play the game. So there's just a lot of ways that we need to be legally approaching that and protecting their data. And, we have teams that are coming up with fun projects for like how to create ways that players can fully export their entire package of data and then like delete it off of our servers forever. So we have no record of them ever having been in our games before if they want to completely remove their data from like the cloud. So that's just another area that I know people are focusing in. And for students that maybe also don't want to code all the time, we have opportunities in like project management or sometimes product management within these security spaces. So maybe people want to be like a technical project manager, kind of guiding teams through like a software implementation. And so, it's more of that kind of communication type work, task tracking, that sort of thing. Still in the security space, it's important for somebody to have a working knowledge of security principles and be able to discuss it, like use the verbiage when they're talking to teams, but again, not so much kind of coding all day, every day. So kind of a lot of opportunities in a lot of different areas and different types of work, but that's it at a glance. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, but is there anything else that you wanted me to cover? I can talk about like our application process and just recruitment in general, but I just want to make sure like does cover the info about our security internships. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think you can keep going.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it doesn't seem like anybody has any questions. Sweet. Well, I have a QR code here for anybody that might want to scan it and go to our applications page where you could find any of the roles that are still open. We're still recruiting all the way through. Our goal is to have our offers out by early December and wrap up before our Christmas break. But so we're kind of in the thick of it right now in this interview stage and meeting students from all over the place. So it's a great time to apply and still be considered. But usually our interview process is just like 1 or 2 rounds, like with a recruiter from my team, but then, with somebody from the team that's actually hiring the intern. We don't usually do a ton of like super technical interview questions or like assessments or things like that. For roles, most of the roles in the security space, especially like don't require such detailed knowledge of like a particular scripting language or anything like that, that they have to like test it out at the front. So a lot of just conversational interviews. It's really important to us more so to find people that have the right, attitude for learning, the right passion for being in the industry, than it is, expecting people to come in being able to be like a very serious developer. So those are the kinds of things that we kind of try to weed out up front. But honestly, we have a lot of opportunities. A lot of people apply. So, I don't really have any other things to add. I wouldn't say we have anything really particular or special about our recruitment process in general. So that's just where we're at right now.
I know you didn't touch on some of the other internships or the other roles, but just for not, what are some of the other roles that you do?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, game development is a big area for us, which I think a lot of people who aren't super familiar with video games may not know how many different types of roles like go into that. But anywhere from people creating where's an example of this? I thought we had a picture, but some of the roles are like working in the physics of how to make a movement be programmed correctly for a character in a video game. So if you want somebody to pick up their arm and move it a certain way, there's a lot of programming on the back end to make it look right. So some students who are really interested in math and linear programming will sometimes be interested in that type of role. We have design focused roles too. We have, tools engineering, which would be people on the back end kind of creating some support services to have the right tools in place for those developers and engineers to be able to immediately grab code or hop into a program that's already set up to do the pieces that they're plugging and playing into the game. But then we have narrative story writing opportunities. We have we opened a whole corporate pipeline this year, which was actually awesome. We have an internship for Arabic translation. So quite honestly, we have basically any type of internship you could come up with. We probably have one opportunity at least for it somewhere, but I would say these are the main tech focused wise. It's mostly about development within the game itself or back-end support for the architecture of the game, and then front-end design for the UI and the websites.
It's interesting that you talk about the narrative portion of that, in the writing and the storytelling. I find that I know there's plenty of students, I'm sure, that have stories in their mind that think, oh, I can't get into this industry because I'm not a coder or I don't do graphic design. But I mean, is there more you want to speak to on that other front? How do you find good stories to tell, and then how do you go about designing those experiences?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not the best person to answer this. We have an entire pipeline in my department that does creative recruiting. So I don't personally look over those, but
Sorry.
I've heard them. Yeah, no, you're fine. I've heard them talk a lot of times about what they, look for in a portfolio. And I think we run into that problem a lot where a lot of students think that they're not qualified enough and they kind of psych themselves out of applying for something where, a lot of times what we're looking for is just not that high level, because, it's an internship and not an associate role. So people who have, anything interesting to share, especially if they can show that they have a passion for gaming, even if they've never worked in it specifically before, that's a big consideration for us. So that kind of applies to any role where maybe you haven't done it before, or maybe you think, oh, I might be missing a couple of the technical skills that I feel like I should have, but people who can illustrate that they spend any of their free time, pursuing passion projects, or they, particularly play our games, a familiarity with our products can balance out maybe an unfamiliarity with a specific coding language, because it takes almost just as much time sometimes to teach somebody about what we're doing and about the basics of a game and about the player base's needs and stuff as it does the basics of a technical language. So I think there's a lot of aspects that get taken into account when we're looking at resumes, but we always encourage people to apply. Don't be scared. Don't leave themselves out, because sometimes people are surprised to find that they meet the qualifications.
And you said the minimum you said was second year or sophomore level college. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. The most we'll ever do is 3 internships for a student. So what we usually try to do, and we're hopefully thinking about maybe one day expanding this and moving away from it, but as our internship program is a pipeline for associate level hires after graduation, and we really only try to hire people that we see at least an intent or an interest in continuing on with them to hire them full time, but we can't really do more than 2 or 3 internships that far out. So kind of sophomore level or juniors who are pursuing a master's is kind of the earliest we'll hire somebody with the intention of keeping them on for a couple of years for repeat internships or extensions for part-time work through the summer. Freshmen, it's a little too early for teams to kind of budget a head count and think about a long-term plan for them. So we do try to keep our hiring to people that can, within a couple of years, work for the company long-term. But our goal is 70% of our interns every summer at minimum to convert them into full-time roles.
Wow, that's a big number, 70%. Oh my gosh. That means,
yeah.
I mean, if you play your cards right, you will land a job with Activision. That's
Quite
excellent.
honestly, yes, we do a lot of we're very intentional upfront about who we hire for the internship program, always to make sure that nobody's getting surprised at the end of it by being like, oh, well, that was fun, goodbye. Like, it's definitely, we're hoping to get people that can stay with the company. So that's why we try to hire people that, unless there's maybe a performance issue or some drastic thing happens with a freeze or someone somewhere, like usually the plan is just to go to offer.
Wow. I think there's a question in the chat, the Zoom chat. Julie, I can't get to it, but if you could read
Yeah.
it.
Can an intern in IT enter into recruiting, developer recruiting? So you mean like a pathway from having like a little bit of a technical background to wanting to work as a recruiter? Because if so, the answer to that would be yes. I majored in Spanish. I didn't major in anything related to HR. So it's not like you need to have a degree or a background that 100% matches that. But I think recruiting, even especially, it would be great to have a working knowledge of some of these principles, and being able to look at a resume and know when you see words on the screen, like a lot of us have to spend months trying to figure out what that means. So people that come from a bit of a technical background and already have that understanding, that would be really helpful. And I think a lot of the soft skills required to be a good recruiter are definitely something you don't have to learn in a classroom, and like something that you could also kind of learn on the job. And we opened up a couple of recruitment internships this year as well. So they're posted on our site. I'll pull this back up again in case anybody didn't get it, but we should have opportunities on there for anybody that wants to try out what recruiting is like.
Yeah, I think it's great that you're keeping the QR code up there, or the QR codes plural, up there for everybody to see. One of the other questions I had was, and you may have talked about it, but lots of technical, engineering based opportunity. And of course, we talked about the storytelling and the narrative, but what about, and you may have mentioned it, quality control, software testers, beta testers, alpha testers. I mean, how does one break into that? And do you need to be an intern to do that? Or is that something that you just look for volunteers or to do out there in the public?
Good question. Yeah, so we've actually thought about expanding our program to have like a QA testing line. We don't have it yet because I think the requirements for being a QA tester are pretty minimal in the first place. And we often hire people directly into that program that are still in college or that are recent grads. So it hasn't necessarily been an area where we have needed to try to snag them really early and create this like very intentional pipeline for those hires. But maybe we're looking at maybe doing that in the coming years. But yeah, I would say we have a lot of opportunities in that region, and you don't have to intern to be able to apply for that. They're all over the website. I don't think they'll be through this link because this is internships only, but yeah, we have a ton of postings online.
Okay, I was going to ask the next question. If somebody were to look in at this and they scan a QR code, these QR codes wouldn't necessarily lead them to the QA testing options, but if they went on your website,
Correct.
they could find it, right?
Yeah, let me type it in the chat really quickly. It's careers.activision Blizzard. I think I'm going to be so embarrassed if this is not right. I think this is the main page. My early careers department is pretty centralized. Like it's just us doing internships. So I'm not like super intimately familiar with our other like full-time non-intern roles, but I'm pretty sure that's our main landing page.
Yeah, I think I just checked it, and sure enough, it works. So
Cool.
we'll take it.
Okay,
We'll take
I'm really glad I got that right.
careers.activision.com. And we're simulcasting this. It's on Zoom, but it's also on YouTube Live through a live stream. So I'm actually trying to field questions from the YouTube chat as well, which has mostly just been support. But I went ahead and put in there if I did it right, yeah, the URL for the careers.activision.com as well. So just trying to copy one thing to another. Very informative. I want to ask a little bit more about the QA testing. You said there's no real barrier to entry with that. So how do you end up choosing somebody to be a quality assurance tester? What is it based on? I mean, anything?
Well, I don't know. So that's entirely handled by full-time recruiters. So,
Okay.
I'm sure they have a list of things that they look for when hiring someone. I just know it doesn't have to come through an internship program, and that it's not necessarily like not open to people who are, I think they'll still take application for students who are still in school, or at least like just graduating without having come through our program.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Julie, do you have any thoughts or any questions? Or
Well,
anything else that popped in the Zoom chat, maybe?
there is one. Do you know what would make someone stand out when applying? That was the
Yeah.
question.
Sure. So oftentimes I will get, if somebody doesn't have a personal project or any experience specifically within gaming, then adding either a cover letter or a little like paragraph at the top to express like why you might be interested in working here. That definitely stands out to us. Anybody that is really passionate about the company and familiar with what we do and can indicate that in some way, just kind of makes them stand out from the rest. We, to be super honest, we get like 20,000 applications every year. So it's a really big pool. And so anything that can help somebody look like, a little bit popping off the paper, kind of different than everybody else, where, we can tell that you're maybe interested in being here rather than just anywhere. That's definitely a key thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead with your thought.
I was just going to say, sometimes when we're looking at like a job posting that has 3,000 people in it, and it's like, oh my gosh, how do I narrow this down? Like, we'll put on filters and search by keyword of like video games, like gaming, and see if anybody has mentioned it, because with a pool of that size, sometimes there just is no way to figure out how to narrow it, but you can't look at everybody all the time. So, that's always a pro tip I give. If you can't specifically put like a technical ability on your resume to match the job posting because you don't have it, then at least putting some keywords in there that we can find you based off of like passion and interest in the company would be next best bet.
I love that you said that, because I preach that. Like, you need to put keywords on your resume if you're applying for certain jobs, because they filter it out. And if you don't have any of those keywords, your resume is going to just kind of go away. But and YouTube videos, like I've seen a lot of videos where, and I know our students here do it, where they'll get on there and they'll talk about games they've played on, through YouTube, and they'll just critique it and talk about what, like, I would think to make somebody stand out with one of your games. Like, I played this one and this is what I thought. I don't know.
A lot of people include links to like a personal website with their application, where you could have your portfolio and code examples and stuff, but you could also include any of those types of personal things where you can't embed a YouTube video into your resume, but you could have, if you have that kind of like a social media presence, or you're a really high up player and you have statistics to show that you spend a lot of time on our games, like you could include that on a personal website. We do look at those very often.
How we were talking, it says Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and you kind of started off talking about some of those things. How does a person know if they're being contacted by a legitimate person from Activision, or are there some gotchas? Are there some scams going on right now?
I think there was one time in the past year where somebody kind of flagged that our postings had been like on some job site we were like not affiliated with, and had some kind of emails go out. Phishing is just a constant problem for everyone, right? But usually all of our reach outs for the internship program will either come directly from one of us recruiters, where it will say at activision.com or at blizzard.com. So if you see somebody with that like legit email, then it means we're emailing you directly. But oftentimes we'll come straight through like our job board. And then it's really hard to fake that, because it will be like tied to a link to a job posting. Like, it'll show that it's a response to your application. So luckily that kind of solves that problem. But yeah, if you're getting an email from somebody that doesn't have one of our official email, like our official company names in the ending, or like doesn't have a LinkedIn link at the bottom where you can confirm that we work there, it does sometimes happen. So watch out, everyone.
Right, exactly.
You may not know the answer to this question, but somebody did ask, what is the future of Activision with the acquisition by Windows?
Yeah, so I
That's
think
a great question.
Yeah, most of us don't know a lot of like really specific details about what that will look like on the day-to-day. I do know it's set to take place sometime like early next summer, I believe. But so we did, since our internship program runs over the summer and we have to get started planning it in advance, we did make sure to double check that we were fine to have the same numbers and we were fine to move ahead. And everything that we have heard is like business as usual. No changes have really come down to us yet. I'm not sure in terms of kind of broader company structure that there may be changes, but I don't think it's quite trickling down to anyone yet. But we have confirmed that the internship program is still going to take place as usual next year.
That's really good to know. And that was a really good question.
Yeah.
As somebody that's up to date with what's going on with your company. So that's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
And I did want to say, what kind of degrees are you looking for with you're doing that?
Sure. Mostly computer science, computer engineering, sometimes information technology or like management of information systems. Those types of things I would say are the most common ones that come up. Sometimes people have specifically a game development or game design degree. It's great too. For a lot of the roles, like the risk analyst internship that I mentioned, that isn't a very technical position, or something like a project manager or product manager. A lot of people will do maybe like a business degree or just a more general, like even a math degree with like a concentration or a focus in, getting a minor in computer science or like a focus in cybersecurity. So they've at least taken a few classes to learn the concepts and be comfortable with the words that people would use. But we don't require all of our roles to have an official like CS degree. Sometimes people come through like an associate's program with a couple of certifications they've done on their own time, and that can work as well. Tech is one of those spaces where it's a lot of what needs to be done is something that can be self-taught. So we really can be quite open about formal education.
So if someone is wannabe or aspiring, I should say, game developer, should they learn some of the frameworks like Unity or Unreal, or does Activision have its own, specific platform that you use that's for y'all only?
I do know that Unity and Unreal do come up quite a bit. C++ is definitely our main language. I think a lot of the studios have like an hour-long assessment in C++. Like if some of the actually sitting and working on the games all day, every day, like the requirements are a little bit more strict and they do need to weed out the skill sets up front via assessment. So that's what I would say to most people that want to get into game dev: work on the C++ skills. And yeah, we do use all those types of engines. So any experience in there would be good.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we know that you only have a half hour and we appreciate your time so much. And somebody asked if there was any way that the acquisition could be blocked.
Yeah, that's a good question. I personally am not super sure. I wouldn't say I'm kept that in the loop about kind of high up what's going on there. So I don't even know how acquisitions work in general, like if that is something that's possible. So yeah, sorry, I wish I could help.
It's just a whole interesting conversation for another time. That's interesting, but we appreciate your time so much, and thank you. I mean, I just love that we reached out and said, hey, can you do this with us? And you're so willing. You're like, yes, because sometimes community colleges don't get opportunities like this. So it's so nice to see the companies, like Activision, are willing to talk to our students and give us an opportunity. So thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah, we're going with a school agnostic approach. Just anybody that's got the skill sets and is passionate about what we do, we'd love to hear from everyone. So it's nice to connect with any students. And really quickly, I saw a question in the chat: does being part-time or full-time student affect your chances? Nope. As long as you are enrolled in a school, you are eligible for an internship program. The way you time that for yourself is not really so important to us. So yeah.
I love all of these things being asked. I think it's interesting. Ryan, did you have any parting words?
No, that's it, except to say thank you so much, Maddie. We really appreciate the time that you did have for us. And I feel like we covered a lot of ground in this short time. So thank you so much.
For sure. It was great to meet you guys, and we'd love to see some of your applications coming through.
Yes, we're going to keep in touch. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.